now in a second. All right, we are on. Mr. Carlos in the house. Let me grab this link here. So again, brother, I do appreciate you making this happen last second. We try to run a tight schedule over here to release weekly, and we do the interviews every other week, um, and then we have a solo. I do a solo episode every other one in between. Um, it can be complicated sometimes for sure. So thank you.
Imagine, yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So you
Oh,
said that
thank you
you
for having me on your show, my guy.
say it again. Can you hear me?
Oh, I said thank you for having me on your show.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Cool. Yeah, I'm grabbing the link
Yeah,
here right now. The you said that you start off in your personal dance journey, if you would. You started off doing mambo. I mean, I would assume so since you're from New York, right?
yeah,
Is that kind of like the standard?
yeah. So like, Mama was a vocal one. Then I picked up bachata and all the other stuff little by little over the time. But yeah, mainly Mambo one was like my first love.
Like, sure. Sure, absolutely, completely understandable. There's huge
I know.
mambo influence here in Miami. Um, that's it's pretty strong. The wave is definitely pretty strong. Um, a lot of the people here in Miami, they want to learn from people in New York. Texting you this link now. Boom, and then I'll send out the text message over here too. Boom. Yes, yes, 112. Save. You got it there? Quintero from
Yeah, I'll post it to my story now.
let's discussing this. Um, one second here with Carlos Quintero Hernandez, Dancer's Journey podcast, discussing the essence of social dance. Join us. Okay, I'm sending this now. Yeah, we got time. Perfect. Booyah. Sending. All right, cool. Boom. All right. Cool. All right. So then, all right. Question. The would you say? I mean, obviously, you're familiar with the on-one timing. Would you say, for a beginner, is it more difficult for a beginner to catch on to the New York style mambo to the on two foot placement versus the on one foot placement, and I guess if it is it easier to transition into the on one timing afterwards? That's like supposedly like the theory. Like, since it's a little bit harder in the beginning, everything else is kind of easier thereafter. Or is it kind of all the same since you're starting from scratch anyways?
It's kind of all the same since you're starting from scratch, especially because I've had a lot of people that told me that when they came from on one to on two, that was hard for them,
Right.
and then vice versa. But in reality, it just depends on your perspective. Because for me, I didn't really find it as hard. It's just more so like just paying attention and more so like I kept on picking things up by sight. But yeah, it really depends on like the person's perspective. In my opinion, I feel like it's easy, but in other people it might be difficult for them.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Tell me a little bit more about perspective. What do you mean by their perspective? The way that they're perhaps the way that they're taught, or
No, in the way, well, I mean, it depends on that too. Actually, now I think
right?
about it. Um, no, but in terms of like the way their mindset is, like if they think that something is gonna be tricky, then it's gonna be tricky. But
Oh,
I
facts,
mean, the more you
facts.
try something out, like it's gonna be easier. So, but
Sure.
there's a lot of times where like people do like get a little in their heads, and then they think one thing might be tricky. But if you really think about it, it's something that you could do that you probably didn't know.
Right, right, right. No, absolutely, absolutely, and that's the battle that we do every day. I mean, we have a, our studio's been running for we just finished our 25-year anniversary, and we specialize in beginners from zero, scratch, nothing, nobody, and that mentality that you're mentioning literally is the class. Like, I would say a good, because our classes run 90 minutes. I would say a solid 30 minutes is just like, yo, you got this, yo, you got this, yo, you got this. Like, um, and because of that, because we focus on that, we actually have a lot of success because, they're coming out of there feeling empowered and like, okay, my teacher actually believes that I can do this. And not only believes that I can do this, but is actually going to get upset at me if I'm not getting it because he believes in me so much that if I'm messing up, that I'm letting the teacher down. That's kind of like the culture that we've tried to do set up in a fun way, of course, without scaring people off either. Um, so how often as a director of the teams now? How often are you guys traveling for performances, or better question, creating new choreographies? In better words.
Well, for me right now, at least, right now I have them on a break, but I've only been doing it for 2 years.
Okay.
I realize that it's not as easy as a lot as like some people might think. Like I used
Oh
to think
yeah.
it was easy, and then I got into it, and then I'm like, oh, this is a lot. Um, but yeah, but like right now, like I have them on a break. But in terms of like coming up with new routines, well, it depends. Like if I have a certain show in mind that I want to present something new, it could take between 3 months, 5 months. It all varies.
Right.
I think the quickest was 2.5 month routine, but yeah, overall though, like yeah, it really depends on like the timing of the show, like, and depending on like how much time we have, it could also depend on what type of choreo I could put in there. Because if the more complex it is, the more of an explanation that they'll need,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
more than likely, the more time on that.
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Yeah. It can get tricky. Do you have? Do you see that there's kind of like a lot of turnover with members and stuff like that? Because I know that that's just complicated in general, just to find people that are, really committed, that are willing to stick it out. Because and it can get expensive, not just like your fees, but just to travel and go to these different events and costumes and this and that. And I mean, it's definitely not easy in the slightest.
Oh yeah, I always try to make it like affordable, especially for like my especially for my dancers. Like I think like the most expensive thing we got on the last costume was the shoes. I went a
Right.
little bit more modern on take on this last one. But yeah, like I saw like it's tricky when some resources are limited.
Right. Of course. Absolutely. What would you say is the average um, age for the people in your group? Is that a relatively younger crowd?
Yeah, surprisingly, is actually I was actually at some point like the youngest one and the director, so I thought I found that
Oh
pretty funny.
wow. Okay, nice. Congrats. That's what's
But,
up. That's what's up.
but yeah, it's usually like in like the early 20s, late 20s. Very rarely, but like well, we have like an older like I think the oldest guy that we have, and he didn't even look old. He looked like he was like late 20s, but he was like about 40, 43, I think.
Wow.
But
Nice. Okay.
yeah,
Good for them. That's what's up.
it really ranges. Like I always try to look for like the talent or like the potential.
Sure.
There's a lot of times where like directors will just want the the good person right away, and I get it because sometimes like time might be pressed, or you just have very little patience in terms of like teaching. Um, but overall, like in terms of like in terms of like directing wise, I try to see the people that do have potential, so then that way I don't I could at least level them up in some type of way.
Absolutely. Where's like your, I guess, a good recruiting spot, if you would. Like where do you find, are you affiliated with a particular academy yourself, or?
Yeah, well, right now I teach in two dance studios. I teach in Dynasty Dance Company, which that and Vita Dance Company, which is both in the city, but fairly new. Luckily, one of them already had like a foundation from the previous company because originally we had uh, uh, um, a separate company that we were part of that we didn't really agree with the politics of it too much, so
Sure,
they
understandable.
branched off. Um, then they became Vita, and then ever since then, like I started teaching there and at Dynasty. But overall, I try to keep it within like the student borders. Um, Mainly because, well, if you really think about it, like, well, it's better when, in my opinion, it's better when you have students who've learned from you.
Oh, of
Um,
course. Yeah, homegrown, baby. Absolutely.
versus
Absolutely.
other people coming in, because other people when they come in, depending on who they are, they might sometimes already have an expectation, and they need to know that like there's other people growing as well.
Right.
So sometimes like some people might have a little bit of a big head,
Sure.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
when
Common,
they come
unfortunately, in the
in,
scene.
they
Yeah.
you gonna say sorry?
Yeah. No, I said, unfortunately, egos are common in the scene. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, we do our best as directors to to keep them in check, and at the same time to be somebody that they respect enough um to essentially listen to, right? I mean, that's kind of like, it's like heavy. I always try and say that the director or the leader will only command respect if they're twice as good as their student, at least. Only because a student's perception is limited because they're students. So they may even go as far as thinking like, "Oh, I'm better than my director." Meanwhile, you're there obviously focusing on other responsibilities and stuff like that. It happens. It happens. It totally happens. And then for example, like you just said, like you step up to the director role and you're like, whoa, okay, this is not easy. Aside from just the responsibilities, but the management of other people. I mean, you're you're a leader.
yeah,
You
just
are
the
taking on
management.
that leadership role.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it gets tricky, I'm sure, and you're going through all that. You're right, and that's what's up, and that's why we have podcasts, and that's why we're talking about this stuff, so we can go ahead and let everybody know that will be eventually a team director, because there definitely will be. There's no doubt about it. We always try to push humility. We always try to push egos aside, and that's going to be the fastest way uh, for growth, etc. For whatever their goals are, for sure.
yeah. Like if I'm be honest, I thought I was gonna be better in terms of directing wise than my director, or because I've been like for being on the team for like 9 years. Well, I changed from team to team. For
Right.
the most part, though, I kind of stayed with one group.
Sure.
But yeah, I thought I could do better. But then, yeah, I was like, oh, you were not kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, don't get
Yeah.
me wrong. Uh, I wonder if he's gonna watch this, but Jose, I was just a little teensy weensy, a little better. Just saying. That's,
Okay.
it's a
Okay.
little funny comment.
Okay. Hey. Yeah. No, for sure, man, for sure. We all learn from each other at the end of the day, which is great. And and the fact is that you took the leap. You took the leap to step into that role, and granted, whenever you kind of break off from home, I guess, if you would, for lack of better words, of course, naturally we stumble. But then we pick it up. We pick it up, and then people respect you because you did it, and then the cycle repeats itself. There's going to be somebody who's going to come through and, they think they got it all figured out because they're actually really talented. And of course, as leaders, we're pushing them up and we're promoting them and we're making them feel good and confident and all that types of stuff. And then, and then people out in the scene are complimenting them because they're so good and da. Yeah, the cycle's real. That cycle is real. Cool, man. We're actually right at 8:00. So let me go ahead and formally introduce you and we'll go ahead and get the show started. Cool? Awesome. All right, give me a second. All right, familia, welcome back. Episode 112 with Mr. Carlos Quintero Hernandez. This is the director of the Dancer's Journey podcast. He's a New York style mambo dancer and performer for over a decade. He's now the director of his own dance team. And as I just previously mentioned, just launched the Dancer's Journey podcast, which is super exciting. We were just talking in the pre-show about all the challenges of kind of rolling into something new, especially, even if it's in the same industry, we're talking Latin dance, when you're going from a social dancer to a performer, if you're going from a performer to a director, if you're going from a studio owner to a podcast host, if you're going from a podcast host to a team director, whatever, any direction, anything new is always, of course, going to be challenging. But I think that ties in wonderfully with today's topic, which is the essence, essentially, of social dance and being able to connect with that variable, if you would, and allowing ourselves to have fun. So we're excited for some great conversation. But before I bring in our guests, guys, mydanceshirts.com right now has a special for today only. If you check it out, this is my new favorite shirts, Acero Certificado. So I love it. It's actually super soft. I can't wait. I actually haven't social danced in it yet, but I'm excited. And they're doing 20% off your entire order already, but for today only. So go ahead, pick up all your new designs. They rolled out with, I think, 20 new designs that are all awesome. mydanceshirts.com. By using the code word SWAG, SWAG, you can go ahead and get your 20% off your entire order. So go ahead and take advantage of that. Right now we're at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so that's until the end of the night. If you want to go and get new codes for the future, visit news.mydanceshirts.com, so that if you can't make this one, then you'll be able to go ahead and get the next one. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and bring on our guest, Mr. Carlos Quintero Hernandez. My brother, are you there? Can you hear me? Is my mic working? Hello.
Yeah, everything's good.
Cool, man. Awesome, bro. Yeah, thank you again. Thank you again for coming on. Appreciate you. I'm excited for your podcast journey. I hope that you can go ahead and use some of this content to go ahead and push your stuff. However, we can help. We're on the other side of the country in the sense of at least north and south. Carlos is coming from or videoing in from New York, which naturally makes him a New York style mambo onto dancer for quite some time now.
It's gonna happen at some point.
Say it again.
I said it was gonna happen at some point.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, which is awesome, and hopefully that's the case, man. I would love for everybody in Miami to know casino. I would love for everybody in New York to know mambo. I would love everybody on the West Coast to know, salsa, and then be able to meet at a some national or international congress. I was just looking at something today about an international congress in Spain. It's actually the first time that I heard about that. I'm going to look into that, which looks pretty exciting. But my brother, before we get into today's topic, brother, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, how you got into dance, the whole 9 yards. Don't leave out any details. Go ahead and let us know about that first social dance, the whole deal from start to finish to where we get now. And I'll be badgering you with questions on the way. I'll give you the floor.
All right. Well, So I've been dancing for 10 years now, both socially, 9 years for performing wise. Um, well, I mean, unless you consider student team, technically 10 years. Now I think about, but overall, like when I was working, um, used to be like my very first social, which was about 3 hours long. I danced for two songs out of those 3 hours.
Hey, that's not too
So
bad, bro. I've heard worse. I've
it's
heard worse. That's
definitely,
good.
yeah, like it's definitely something different as soon as like you experience your social for the very first time. Um, like you think just because what you learn from class, like because I went in after 6 months of already knowing a bunch of stuff, but the second that you start social dancing, it just becomes like a fog in your head. And like I remember blanking out and just sticking to basic crossbody, even though I knew like complicated, like two like complicated moves or whatever. But yeah, as soon as you touch the social dancing game, it's a whole different ball game. Um, I remember when it came to performing as well. Like, it's two separate aspects that I feel like some people think that they might be the same, but when you really get into it, there's difference between like choreo and then itself. Um, but after dancing for 10 years, about 2 years ago, so this is about like 8 years in, that's when I started teaching at Vita Dance Company along with Dynasty Dance Company. And
What was the
ever
first
since
place? I'm
then, I've
sorry.
been with
I'm sorry
them.
to cut you off. Where was the first place you
Oh,
said that you were teaching?
Vita Dance Company and
Vida.
then
Okay, cool.
Dynasty Dance Company. Yeah. Um, but ever since then, I started a team. Then I started doing a podcast episodes. And yeah, now I'm here.
Nice. Okay, cool, man. Beautiful. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, we would agree 100% that the environment that's I guess you could say in the classroom or in the studio is radically different than that of when you first go out, and I think that's why that has a lot to do with why we both have started this platform to be able to kind of reach out to those that are perhaps want a little bit more information before delving in to this realm, to the social dance realm. And honestly, I've referred it to social dance as a whole as magical. Once it's figured out, and um, once you understand the nature or the essence, which we'll be talking about today, what's created genuinely um, is art. So I mean, if you don't mind, bro, I mean, let's go ahead and get right into it then. Um, you had said that you'd be able to first provide a definition, almost a definition of what social dance is supposed to be, how we can become the best social dancer that we could be, and then the steps towards that. Could you talk about that a little bit for us?
Yeah. So when you're very first starting, a lot of people they tend to focus on themselves, which is totally natural because at the end of the day, like we're all still learning.
Right.
But when it comes to like eventually like the long term goal, if you really think about it, like there's certain steps that some dancers take. It may not be in the same order, but eventually they're all there. That kind of creates that great dancing aspect of the social dance itself. So like one of the first things that a lot of people should always focus on at the very beginning is the fundamentals. Like I feel like there's a lot of times where some people just want to go straight into like the new moves, but I'm like, you didn't even get like the first few ones right. Just don't put too much on your plate. Like a lot of people are like, some people overstep where they're at, which isn't wrong, but at the same time, like the man that can do their basic a lot more than the man that knows 1,000 moves is gonna look way better than the man that knows 1,000 moves.
Right.
So, um,
Absolutely. And we talk about that way too much, which is wonderful, because essentially the definition that you're talking about, right, is the looking good, right? The looking good doesn't come from the complexity necessarily. It may be a variable, but not the essence, right?
Yeah. Um. Yeah. When it came to starting out, I remember that I would literally be focused on nothing but my right turn, cross body, all like the more essential stuff. Because um, when I first started, like, I'll be honest, like I was trying to like, I was mainly in it to kind of like trying to impress like the girls, but at the same time, like I thought that meant
Naturally.
like, like
Naturally, my bro. No shame in the
uh,
game there. No, not at all.
yeah, but after fundamentals, like I noticed a lot of people like especially like the good social dancers, then they start focusing on more of like their styling aspect,
Hmm.
which is good because everyone like dances differently. So it's good to see everyone break out of their shells and like see who they are. So it definitely comes down to like knowing the fundamentals, styling, and then the next thing which I always see, which is the actual passion that you can tell from a person when they dance. Because a lot of times we're like, I see people dance with each other, but I know that they're not smiling, they're not having a good time. Like at the end of the day, like you're trying to connect with that other person. So with connecting with the other person, that's going to be a little tough when you're not making the dance fun or you're not really engaging or focusing on like what to do in the moment, like. And sometimes like in the moment, like you have to learn how to be flexible and just go with the music, which is very very hard because I notice that
Right.
people when they go with the music, it's musicality takes like, I'll be honest, it takes a long time to get, especially if you don't know the song as well. Once you start like listening to, I try to listen to like the songs that I listen to like as many times as I can, and it sucks because I have like over 3 days worth of salsa in my phone.
Oh, nice.
Um,
I
yeah,
hear you.
so like trying to connect with the music is like one of the last things that I know people go for, or that I see at least, especially with like the great dancers. I always see that they go with the music more now than when they did at the very beginning. Because I be seeing like their previous like past history and everything. I'm like, oh, I'm like, okay, okay, like it's a huge glow up, or like it's a small glow up.
Right,
Um,
right. No, absolutely. I'm definitely seeing improvements on the dance floor now too. It's nice.
yeah, but
Question
there's
actually, really quick. Do we have something in Salsa King's culture to dip the lady at the end of a dance? Is that something that people in New York do?
yes and no.
Okay,
Because not everyone knows how to dip. So
sure.
not everyone dips, but I feel like only do it when. Well, I mean, one, you know that you did a good job in like terms of like connecting with that person and having fun.
Right, right, right,
Um,
right. Yeah, so that's something that we
or
roll with
two,
like right from the beginning. Like people's first class, like you did basics the whole time. And then obviously we're not talking about like these dips that you're seeing in the movies, like you're gonna crack her skull on the floor. No, 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 none of that dangerous stuff. We're like literally just the intention of allowing the lady to relax her neck, at the end of a dance, to so she can feel special essentially and appreciate it at the end of the dance is something that we're trying to create and per your point that you were saying before, versus previous years, we're seeing that a lot more are starting to dip more. So, which is
yeah,
cool.
when it comes to dipping, like, well, for me at least, I feel like it has to be like well earned to dip.
Sure.
Because if you ain't doing like a good job, I'm gonna just high five.
Right,
Because I'm like, I didn't.
right. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. No, that's cool. That's cool. So yeah, I guess ultimately, just in general, like I'm seeing the growth of the scene. Overall, there was definitely some awesome points that you brought up. Listening to the music, staying present, connecting to your partner. Um, I guess could you talk a little bit more about? We have something we refer to there's almost like a triple connection between yourself, your partner, and the music. We call that the Trinity. Um, so what it could, because essentially you touched on that, right? Which is what's cool, because we're just kind of like sticking names to things that are intangible. And uh, how would you describe? What would be the best way? I think, like you said, the music perhaps comes a little bit later. It's a little bit more difficult to understand. It's more intangible. Obviously, you're physical, but not easy in any way, shape, form, or fashion, because every partner is different, right? But what would you say would be probably the the most fundamental yet maybe not so obvious things in order to connect with physically your partner to start? Because you touched on presence.
I gotta say, when it comes to kind of like what to focus on, I guess it sucks because there's a lot of things to focus on in the moment. But
Oh,
when
for
you're
sure, and
very
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, right. I'm totally asking a heavy question for sure, no doubt about it. But I guess just the first one, like, okay, a brand new student walks up to you with the experience that you have and says, hey, bro, give me a tip, give me one thing, tell me something I don't know. You know, what would that be with regards to the physical connection?
learn how to take your time.
Oof, nice.
Because there's a lot of times where like people will throw one move after another, but half of the time they want to do a basic because they're like out of breath. I remember I used to do that when I was younger. And I looked at the girl, I was like, oh, she looks tired. I was
Right.
like, I mean, she might be having a little fun, but I'm pretty sure she doesn't want to be worn out. But definitely taking your time. Like, there's a lot of times where people just try to rush into the stuff. I'm like, yeah, but if you do that, you might miss like the little details that would make the move to come out better, especially if you don't fully know all the aspects of that move. Um, it yeah, I would say definitely to focus on just taking it slow and to make sure that you're following what your instructors tell you, because there's a lot, because I'm a very detailed person when it comes to teaching wise. So I normally do give a lot of details, but there to make the dancer understand that there's a lot more to the move than what you think. Like, you might see the end result where it's just, oh, a simple right turn, but you got to remember all the littlest, tiniest details, because the littlest thing is gonna make the dance feel, well, the move itself off. So that's all the cool stuff.
That is
But
huge. That's huge, dude. Like you called it, you hit it right on the head. Like you're dancing with your partner, and because you took a second, 1 second to actually look at your partner, you were able to notice and adjust. There's a lot more that if we're slowing down, if we're paying attention. There's a lot more things that we can find. Um, that our partner is asking for. And that's not necessarily, lead to follow. That's very much in the other way around too. Follows. Your leads could be, communicating and asking for things, and you can head a little bit more in that direction, to help essentially what the ultimate goal is, which is, to connect and to have fun. But slowing down will allow you to stay together easier. I think you hit that right on the head, my bro. Take it slow motion for me, slow motion for me. Yeah, for sure. No, that's great. That's great. Which is why I think there's also a big tendency. Tell me if you found this pattern as well. Students seem to, at least when they get to like an intermediate level, they like faster songs. Like, like
I'm,
because
I'm
it's
guilty of that.
easier to like to go over things, if that makes sense.
I was very
You know?
when when I touched the intermediate level back in the day. My teacher, he taught us cha cha, and with cha cha you have to go slow. Like,
Yeah.
if you speed up, it's not what the music was intended for. Um, like it's hard. It's funny because when he first taught us cha cha, like he always said that slowing down is much more harder than going faster. Which ever since
100%.
then, that's kind of like stuck with me. But the hardest thing that like a person can do is just learning to just get your timing right, because timing is a huge aspect of the dance. Like the second that you become off timing, it bothers. Well, after a while, it's gonna bother you too, but like it bothers other people, and then it bothers your partner when your partner is looking at you like, "What are you doing?"
Absolutely. You're literally on a different,
So,
we like to consider it that you're literally on a different wavelength at that point. Um, you're not in sync.
let me turn on my light.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, no, amazing stuff, man. Okay, so then I love that about the physical connection. What about for the music? What would you say? What's something that you found that it's like, oh man, if my teacher would have just said this sentence to me, it would have made, or I would have been able to jump, forward. Which is funny enough. Oftentimes, our instructors did tell us those things. We just weren't ready to hear them, so it kind of went over our head. Um, but
That's what
obviously,
I was gonna say. I think it's pretty much told me everything. It's just more of me.
right, right. But always, reinforcement's
But
always good.
overall,
What would you
if
say
I had
would be?
to see, now that one is tricky for me. The reason why I say this because for me, at least, my dance journey, like at the very beginning, like I did nothing but put in hard work. Like don't get me wrong, like the first two months, I wasn't really like super into it, but as soon as like my fourth, fifth month started, that's I'm like, I'm gonna take this seriously. Like I'm a like trying to be good, like very good at it.
Nice.
Not the best because it's gonna be very hard to be the best, but definitely to be good at this. Um, Kind of like be up there with my teacher, and in a way, I kind of have. Um, like it's funny because like after years, like you become close friends, and then you end up like kind of being like shoulder to shoulder kind of thing.
Love it.
So
Absolutely. By default, man. I mean, you put in the work, you put in the time. You're doing everything that your instructor is telling you to do. It's only a matter of time before the only thing that separates you both is experience. Um, which, of course, there's nothing that can really replace that, but you can at least be the best that you can be, right? Which is essentially all that we can do. And as long as we're constantly doing that, and I mean, that's not just with obviously dance. That's with anything, right?
yeah,
So for music, I guess let me see if I can get another way to phrase it. What are you specifically listening for, or what type of song specifically kind of gets you more into the mood, more feeling the music, if you would. What patterns have you found there that okay, like this type of stuff I like or I can get really into, um, that I can even have fun, dancing with a beginner as long as this type of music is on or this instrument is playing or you name it.
mm. Gotta say like the genres. I like salsa romantica.
Okay.
Plus, whenever there's a little bit of guaguancó in this call, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
like
absolutely. Yeah, rumba, one go, absolutely.
yeah, those are like my two top favorites.
Nice.
Um, Whenever I hear like a huge break in the music and like the rhythm changes, I love those. Like I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, like okay, okay,
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah, I
a
mean,
lovely change of
it's an
pace.
opportunity. It's an
Um,
opportunity to express yourself, right? It's there's space, and if we're going slow enough,
yeah,
we can actually capitalize on that, right?
yeah. If there's one genre that I don't feel like is for me, or I just don't like as much, is charanga. Like if I hear charanga, I'm not really into it.
Okay. Yeah. No.
but
Absolutely. We have preferences, of course.
yeah, I was gonna say like everyone's a little different. Like I know someone that loves it, but I'm like, yeah, I'll take the next song. Um, But yeah, like there are like certain songs that will like get me going. Like if I hear Amor Perfecto by what's his name, Alex Matos,
Nice.
or if I hear Buscando la Verdad by DJ Ricky Campanelli, I think
Okay.
his name
Yep.
is. But there's like certain songs that like I'm just like, even if I'm like I just danced 10 songs, I'm out of breath. If I hear that song, I'm like,
That's it. That's it. Music's taking over. Let's
okay, let's
go.
go.
Let's go. Absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, cha 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 does it, brother. I love me an awesome Cuban cha cha cha. Um, that's a little bit more my roots, of course, but just the way the music is composed. I love the speed of the music, obviously slow, while at the same time allowing for relatively quick, footwork, a lot of juice in the upper body. Um, really, really, really nice. So I love it. I love it. I guess so. Then combining all of them, you know, if we're going slow, if we're paying attention to what we like, expressing what we like, right? What I guess ultimately, how would you describe the essence? How would you describe the feeling when all of these pieces are kind of clicking together? Um, what's that feel like for somebody who doesn't know? Like you're a brand new. Okay, here we go. Brand new student just handed you $5,000 and said, "Teach me until I get it." And you're gonna start with the end in mind. You know, uh, and you're gonna say, "Okay, here's the goal. Everything that I tell you from here forward is gonna head towards this place or this feeling." What would that be? What? I mean, obviously, this is impossible to describe, right? At least logically,
Well,
because it's
if we
more
were to
of a
describe it
feeling,
like,
I would think.
well, if we had to describe it physically, like you had to get it to the point where it's like the dance is gonna be the back of your hand. Like not that you know what's coming up, because there's a lot of times where like I do moves and I didn't even know that that was possible. Like until I did it, like out of nowhere. Because there's a lot of times like you'll make a move out of the spot, like on the spots, and that's because you're so into like being in tune with the music that like you just let it take over and you don't even know what the hell just happened. Um, but in terms of like physically describing wise, apart from like knowing it like the back of your hand, like you have to get to the point where like you can do it blindfolded. Like you have to know all your fundamentals so perfectly that like you have to dance blindfolded. Like at some point I try to teach like some of my students like how to dance blindfolded, because for example follows a lot of the time in class, always in class they're always going to back lead it, because let's be honest, leads take a little longer to cook than follows.
Well said.
uh,
Well said.
So yeah, with them at least, I try to blindfold them so then that way they understand that like you have to know where you are in the dance and just know your footwork and know the lead, or same thing vice versa. Like you have to know where your track is. You have to know how far she's gonna be. Like you have to picture it like in the back of your mind. Where if I took your eyes away, it'd still be no issue.
Nice.
But yeah, there was a lot of times like I kind of took that from my instructor too. Like he did it as a joke, dancing blindfolded, but then I started using it more in my teaching tactics, because there's a lot of times where like you really won't you it has a lot of like teaching fundamentals that like you would never think of, because at the end of the day like a lot of times what you see something that's coming is different versus what you might feel, especially if in the dance you do a move that like it's kind of like a fake out, I gotta say, where if let's say you're trying to do one thing but then you're like haha nope. Like a lot of times like a lot of people focus on what they're seeing rather than what they're physically feeling for them to move to that move. um
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. No. No. Absolutely. And I love the blindfold analogy because you're essentially rehearsing or practicing being able to know where everything is, obviously including your partner, not just yourself, but your partner as well, to where you have enough room to play. So that's what we try to do. It's like you're so comfortable, almost even as an examples, just to
Yeah,
unlock.
I tell them straight up, not do for example, don't try to only dance with only your left hand the whole song, and let's see how many moves you can come up with.
Right. That's a great one too. Right.
They'll be
Just
like,
like
yeah,
literally start chopping off limbs. Like, okay, no arm, one leg, one eye, make it happen because essentially that's the idea. It's that it has nothing to do with, your tools per se versus, you and how you're feeling. You could still express yourself with one hand. You could still express yourself without your eyes. You could still express yourself, um, in an infinite amount of ways. And I guess ideally, which you're hitting right on the head, is that we're being able to play while all this is happening. I couldn't agree more, man. Tell us a little bit about your podcast. Is there a specific theme that you guys are doing? I know that you recently started, but have you discussed kind of like what the general objective is, if you would, etc.
Ooh, that's a good question. Uh, it's just more so getting everyone's story out there and kind of like creating a legacy, not just for myself, but for everyone. Because at the end of the day, like again, everyone's journey is completely different. Like, there's a lot of times where like I wish I could teach all the students the stuff that I knew, but I know for a fact they're gonna go through it differently than I may have,
Yep.
or they may not choose to continue the journey with me, but they may continue to choose the journey with someone else, and then they may not know the background of that person as well. Because sometimes, like some instructors, well, to be more specific, some students don't get close with their instructors as much, that like you need to know why that person is the way that they are,
Well
in terms of
said.
dance wise, um,
Right.
and like why how they came to me, because there's a lot of like big names out there that I'm just like, damn, if only I was there with you just to watch this like greatness happen, just so like I can kind of take some stuff out of it too. Um, but like I just love hearing everyone's stories, because everyone comes like a few different background, different just different mindset in general, like what they wanted in this originally versus what they got out of it. To like so for example, for like those people that created names for themselves, like there's a reason why they are the way that they are, and like why a lot of people love them, and just yeah.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. And I think that's also really humbling. That's very humble of you guys, to want to share everybody's story, because at the end of the day, that's what we have. That's who we are, right? We're just a series of events around a series of people, that's created us who we are. And obviously, we all make the choices that we make because we believe them to be right based off of everything that we've gone through. And I think that's what makes social dance so awesome, because two completely different people from completely different backgrounds, can come together and share something, uh, that they both enjoy in their own ways, and then obviously with the music connecting you, you're able to create something that you couldn't otherwise before. But that's awesome, um, that because you're able to learn so much from somebody else's story, and the why, you know, the why of
Yeah, the why is always a different one. Everyone's why is a different story. Like if I'm be straight up, like apart from it was more for like a friend of mine. I don't really share that story too much, but it was more so because my friend was interested in this first, in terms of like just dancing wise, not professionally, or like the casual like family dancing stuff like at parties and stuff, but
sure.
her wanting to do that kind of like got me just like wanting to try it out. I'm just like, okay, she loved this, so I might as well see what's I guess what's so great about it in the moment. Uh, and then 10 years later, I'm here.
There it is. There it is. I
So
mean, that's at least. I mean, I don't. I'm to be honest with you, I'm not familiar with the non formal non-formal salsa scene in New York. Um, I mean, granted, because I didn't grow up in New York, but at least in Miami, it's extremely common. There's obviously there's a lot of Latinos here, Cubans, Venezuelans, Colombians, and the backyard patio party, doing less than basic steps, having, two or one to too many drinks, extra, and then just having a good time for no other reason than to just have a good time. Is that similar? Is that how it works in New York also, or is kind of like, is everybody just mambo
Yeah,
kings over there? Like, how, I like, tell us.
um, yeah. But in terms of like uh, there's not like, well, like, yeah, I guess in a way there is an informal scene. Yeah, we get a lot of those who are just like, yeah, I picked up, I was dancing since I was a little girl. I learned
Right,
street salsa. I'm like,
right.
no
Street
offense, but like
salsa. That's my favorite phrase ever.
to any of if there's any viewers out there watching, just don't take it to offense, but like whenever I hear that, I'm just like, oh, red flag.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. Yeah. Absolutely. Unfortunately. Unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Street salsa is normally synonymous with I don't have my timing. Yeah. Sadly. Sadly.
yeah,
But it is what it is. It is what it is, and that's why we have jobs, essentially, right? You know? so so we have to be grateful. That's what's up, man. And so, okay, cool. So you're telling us essentially the the story. That's awesome. If it makes any kind of sense for you whatsoever, I definitely have a crazy story. I got no problem if you want to make that happen. As far as for another episode, if that makes any kind of sense at all, we could definitely talk about that. I would love to bring you even back on for another topic. Also, I think we've covered a nice amount. If there's anybody that's currently watching that they have any questions, if you have any questions for Carlos, go ahead and ask them now. But yeah, man, I guess. Do you have any? Are there any plans? I mean, I know that you just started the podcast, but any other plans for your team or outside of the podcast that you have going for yourself? Or focus is good too. It could just be those things as well. That would be really good, actually.
in terms of the team, I gotta say, I had to put that on pause, mainly to start the podcast. But like, if I want to be 100% honest, I've been a little bit inactive, so like what I could do more for the podcast. But that's kind of like my main goal of the podcast, because I one day picture, for example, like where we have 10 of like the greatest salseros, salseras, or bachateros, whatever, but like have a huge panel and like just
Yes.
converse about like how we see that. That's funny because it's always been like my instructor's dream, and like about a couple years afterwards, then it started becoming my dream little by little. Because that would be so much fun to have, for example, like
Absolutely.
Adolfo, Ernesto Denise, or like Fernando Salsa, like
Sure.
having those great names like all in the same room. I'm just like, I think I might pass out like that day. Like I'm just,
Hey man,
yeah,
everything,
lights out.
anything's possible, man, and 100%. I think because we're also a really big fan of community, of collaboration. If a lot of different podcasts get together and we're able to use that same material and share it between each other, I think something like that would be possible. At the end of the day, what are we talking about? We're talking about money, right? So if we gather up enough money and we hand them what they need to be handed. Obviously they're able to use the content and the material as well. Obviously, if they find it to be valuable, or granted, we have enough listeners between us all that it's worth their sponsorship or whatever, and obviously all that type of business we can discuss that. But granted, if we have more resources, but absolutely, something like that would be. I would drill these guys with questions. I would love to do that. That would be loads of fun. For sure, man. I love it. I love that dream. Hey, bro, it's been an absolute pleasure. I would love to stay in touch with you to see how we can go about making that happen. For those of you that are watching, what is today? Today is July 10th, 2023. We're announcing that we're going to go ahead and create the panel, and we're going to bring up all of the biggest international names up on a stage, and we're going to go ahead and release that. We're going to do that YouTube, podcast, whatever your favorite format. We're going to go ahead and make that happen. We said it today. Salsa Kings Live, Carlos Quintero, Hernandez. Thank you guys so much for listening. Carlos, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for coming on, and thank you for all that you do.
And I hope to have you, I guess, as my guest.
That would be awesome, man. Absolutely. Let's stay in touch, and we'll make that happen. Absolutely. For those of you listening on Salsa Kings Live, we'll go ahead and share that content as well when we go about making that happen also. For sure, man. Carlos, have an amazing night. For all you paying attention and watching, I love you guys so much. Thank you for your continued loyalty. Have an amazing night. Bye-bye.